You know, I guess I do. People have come over my house and see the way I work in Pro Tools. You gotta understand, I started out using, when I started doing my productions, it was in a Roland W30 workstation. A lot of people use like ASR 10s or EPS 16s. I used a Roland W30 because I was taught it by Armand Van Helden, and it was the, he taught me, so I used it. And it was the only workstation that had eight outputs. So at the time, but it was really limited in sample time. It was like 2 banks of 7.4 seconds. So from that, I read an article. Trent Reznor started using Studio Vision Pro. So I was like, okay, well, I love him. I'm going to use that. And then from there, I went, and that's when I guess Opcode owned Studio Vision, and then they sold to PV for some weird reason. Stopped using them, and then went to eMagic. Started using Logic religiously until Apple bought them. And I was like, it just was weird to me. It started changing. So then I just said, you know something? I always like to evolve anyway with programs. So I started using Pro Tools. I got my first Mix Plus system, secondhand used. It was still expensive at the time. I just went for it. And I fell in love with Pro Tools. And I use every program that I've used, I use the same way. I arrange in it, I edit, I do everything in it. Some people use Pro Tools as just like a tape machine. They just track to it. So yeah, it's super creative and intuitive. To me, there's nothing you can't do in it. I mean, it's the bow, what is it? It's not the bow, it's the Indian, right?
So what do you think is creative about it for you?
I see everything. It's like I have a friend of mine. His name is Michael Moog, Philip Damien. And he's like, you read waveforms. I'm like, what are you talking about? I just read. I don't know. I see everything in there, and it's super. There's nothing. In the beginning, Pro Tools had problems with MIDI. I didn't do a lot of MIDI things in it because it was just wonky. It just didn't work right. Now it's completely amazing, and everything that it does, the warping and everything that Ableton does. I'm a user of Ableton since Ableton 1, since DigiSign distributed them, and it's to me, I use Ableton and Pro Tools equally the same way. Pro Tools I use more because it just sounds a lot better.